Hey, how's it going, beautiful people? Welcome back to the African Comic Guy, and today we get to talk about another comic book character, and we're actually going to start talking about a villain, right? One of the cool things about my channel is I'm going to be tackling not only superheroes, but also villains as well. And today's villain actually is an interesting villain because not only is he one of the most powerful supervillains in the DC universe, but at the same time, we actually get to see a new version of this character at the end of this year in the new Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom movie. Now, if I actually talked about this trailer a few days ago, and if you haven't watched that trailer, I'll actually put a link down below to watch the Aquaman trailer, the new one. But we're about to talk about Black Manta. Now, a lot of people don't know him. If you're new to DC, if you're new to DC animation, you've probably seen him in Young Justice. Um, if you like Aquaman, then and you've followed Aquaman, you obviously know that he's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, um, foes when it comes to Aquaman, and he plays actually a big role in Aquaman's life, right? So we're gonna talk about him. We're gonna talk about him. We're gonna talk about Black Manta, the origins, who is he, what does he do, how does he do what he does, what's his motivation, and all of that. And I can't wait to talk about it. So you know what? Without further ado, let's cue the intro. Now, before I get started, like always, if you find this content interesting, fun, entertaining, how about you just not only leave a like, but how about you just subscribe, support this channel? I'm really excited about where this channel has a potential to go and the meaningful conversations we can have about comics. So support your boy. Now, for me, being a DC fan, I've known about Black Manta for a very, very long time. Um, and one thing I've realized is I've known different versions of Black Manta. Like the cool thing about comics is there's so many different adaptations of a particular character, right? So if you grew up with a particular character and maybe that was published in 1937, he's had, or this character has had different iterations over the decades, right? Because every writer or publisher wants to tell a story. Now, there's always nuance to this story. A lot of times they want to keep certain aspects of the origins, but then sometimes they play around with it, right? So instead of, example, Batman, right? There are different versions of Batman where he first learned to fight by actually Alfred taught him how to fight. There's different versions where he started his fighting skills learning from Alfred, his butler. And then there's some versions, like the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight trilogy, where he actually was trained not only in prison, learned how to fight, but also he learned a lot of his martial arts through the League of Assassins, right? Ra's al Ghul. So like there are different iterations. That's what I'm trying to say. So with me, with Black Manta, I remember seeing. I never really saw his origin. So whenever the moment I saw Black Manta, I saw him already as the character Black Manta, right, fighting Aquaman. And in the most recent Aquaman movie in 2019, he became Black Manta because he blamed Aquaman for the death of his father, and his dad actually told him that he belonged to this group while he was younger called the Manters. He actually had a small knife that had like a manta ray. A manta ray is a type of fish, right? Like a manta, right? And he decided to take on that persona, including building this incredible suit, the head actually resembling and if you know a manta ray, it's almost circular, right? It almost feels, because even his vessel, right, that he uses in the water, it's shaped like a manta ray. So I've known different versions of this. So we're going to talk about certain versions of this story, just to give you context And hopefully, I don't know if you've seen some you have, some you don't. I'll kind of reference certain places where you can actually see and find some of these versions, whether in comic books or in animation. Like DC has really good animation. Young Justice is really pretty good. So let's take a look at Black Manta and let's talk about it. Black Manta, also known as David Hyde, is a supervillain, first appearing in American comics, published by DC Comics. He was actually created by Haney and Nick Cardy. Now, he actually first appeared in Aquaman number 35 back in September 1967. And he's pretty much become the arch enemy of Aquaman, right? One, if not the biggest enemy of Aquaman. Like I said before, he has numerous origin stories, right? Now he's been featured in different comic books with different origin stories. Now, despite these different versions of Black Manta, he's always been depicted as this ruthless mercenary, underwater mercenary, pretty much obsessed with destroying Aquaman's life. It feels like that's his biggest motivation. Now, he actually built a pretty cool black suit, right? And if you watched Aquaman 2019, you saw him build it. And he takes a lot of pleasure and a lot of time, and he's very meticulous in building this suit because he knows what he's up against, right? Here's Aquaman, pretty much invincible. So in order for him to feel like he can match up with this god, he has to build something, and he puts a lot of work into it. He puts a lot of technology into it, and by the end of it, he actually adds a lot of Atlantean weapons into his own armor, because only an Atlantean weapon can hurt Aquaman, right? Like a regular knife can't, but an Atlantean knife can. So he adapts and he uses and he incorporates a lot of Atlantean. Some of it he stole, some of it he was given, right? And he incorporates all of that into his armor, into his gear, because he knows that's the only way he can actually be able to fight Aquaman. Now, in one of his origin stories, like in this 1993 Aquaman series, he's basically a black kid born in Baltimore, Maryland. He ends up being kidnapped and forced to work on a ship for a pretty long time. Nobody really knows. There isn't a definitive time or how long he spent on this ship. And on this ship, he was actually physically and mentally abused by his captors. Now, at one point, while on the ship, he happened to see Aquaman hanging around with like a pot of dolphins, right? And he tried to get Aquaman's attention. He wanted Aquaman to save him, but Aquaman didn't see him. Aquaman didn't recognize the danger, and it rubbed him the wrong way because he felt that Aquaman pretty much had abandoned him, left him with these people who were basically tormenting him night and day. So he started building resentment and this vengeful spirit. Now, finally, he basically decided to defend himself and ended up killing one of his captors, like with a knife. Now, he actually developed this hate of the sea and obviously and Aquaman himself, because he felt that everything wrong that he had gone through was because of the sea, and also by the fact that you have this man, this incredibly strong man, right, who didn't come to his rescue. So at that point, he decided, you know what? The only way to right my wrongs is to go after, or actually to be in control, to do everything humanly possible to take control not only of the sea, but also kill this one character that to him left him, abandoned him. Now, there's also another alternative version, a 2003 Aquaman series. Now, in this series, the boy who would actually become Black Manta was actually autistic and happened to be an orphan in Gotham City, where he was actually in Gotham City's Arkham Asylum. Now, if you don't know Arkham Asylum is where Batman and also the authorities or whoever is in charge of Gotham City, that's where they put mentally deranged criminals, but also at the same time, it's it serves as a purpose as a hospital. It just ends up becoming a hospital that also serves criminals. Now, like most of these asylums, even now, I think a lot of times people don't have the education, the know-how to actually help or treat people that have a lot of these disorders. And in this case, him being autistic, a lot of the people that, a lot of the caregivers that were in Arkham Asylum didn't know how to help him the right way. So he ended up being restrained most of his life um, in a bed, night and day. And this kid would basically struggle, scream, do whatever he could to get away, to get him to stop, but they didn't. In their eyes, they were doing what was best for him, not realizing they're actually really torturing this kid. And funny enough, while being in Arkham Asylum, he ends up seeing Aquaman and becomes fascinated with Aquaman. So while being in Arkham Asylum, he was actually subjected to a lot of experiments, illegal experiments. One of these experiments was actually designed to basically clear his mind. You know what I mean? And we've seen a lot of these, some of these versions were like the Martian Manhunter, where he actually tries to clear your brain, clear your memories, right? Get rid of your memories. So they tried to do that with this kid, but all it did was turn this kid angry and violent. And as a result, he ended up killing a lot of these scientists who kept saying that they were actually treating him, but he killed them and finally escaped Arkham Asylum. Now, soon after he escaped, he built his suit, the suit that we've already talked about. And, one of the cool things about this suit is this suit could shoot powerful, powerful rays, almost like Superman. Not as powerful as Superman, but it could shoot really, really powerful beams, right? And in in the comics and actually even in the movie, they actually depicted it pretty cool that by using the technology given to him either by the Atlanteans or stealing it from Atlanteans, he built this suit. And his primary source, his primary power, I guess. Now, again, this is a man with no powers, right? He uses, again, this is a really, really intelligent man who figures out a way to build a suit, but at the same time, like I said before, realizes because he hates this specific superhero, Aquaman, he needs something to go toe to toe. And Atlantean gear, Atlantean weapons, and at the same time, he figures out a way to make these rays that are so powerful that they actually burn Aquaman. You know what I mean? So by blocking them, they burn him. So he uses these weapons not only to fight Aquaman, he fights a lot of superheroes and villains too. And he ends up becoming very, very powerful. Ends up building a really large team. He ends up building his own version of an army, right? He becomes very ruthless in the way he trains them. He is very unforgiving. He does not do well with failure, and he becomes um, really hell bent on destroying everything Atlantis. In some versions in the comics, he ends up killing Aquaman's son, turning Aquaman very vengeful and turning Aquaman into a different version of Aquaman, where um, he forgets that he's a superhero and goes after Aquaman, and they have one of the biggest fights ever. He could care less whether he killed him. He was just, he was out for blood. I want to mention that there's so many versions of Aquaman, and we've seen him in issues where, like, especially recent animation with DC has really done a really good job of showcasing Black Manta. Not only that, in certain new versions of DC animation, like in Young Justice, they featured his son, supposed son, Aqualad, Calderon, right? And in some versions, Aqualad is an orphan found by Atlanteans. Versions, he's actually Aqualad becomes Black Manta's son, and but funny enough, he ends up joining the Justice League. He ends up being a good guy as opposed to his dad, who's a supervillain. Now, Black Manta has also been in teams. He's been in the Legion of Doom. He's also been recruited by the Suicide Squad. So he's been in a number of teams throughout. In the last movie we saw with 2019 Aquaman, I love the fact that it's basically portrayed by Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, pretty good actor, and he did a pretty good job. I mean, he was badass. I love the fact that they showcased Black Manta. It was almost like an origin story because in that particular movie, his dad was basically the leader. He wasn't Black Manta yet, but they were pirates, right? They looted. They would find ways to get on different military vessels. It didn't matter what it was. They just found ways to pirate, steal whatever they did. They would kill. It didn't matter to them. They killed. And in this particular time, they got caught. Basically, Aquaman found them and fought them off, beat them all, and ended up fighting this guy who becomes Black Manta and his dad. Ended up impaling Black Manta's father and chose not to save him while he was escaping, right? Saving the sailors, I guess. And as a result, Black Manta's father died. And this guy, at that moment, blamed everything on Aquaman. He just lost his dad. This powerful person could have saved his father easily, could have saved his father, but chose not to. And as a result, leaving that submarine, he became extremely angry, extremely vengeful, and at that point decided his life's goal was to basically destroy Aquaman. And in this movie, you could see it. And he actually did a pretty good job. And I'm super excited because we get to see him again in Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. And in this movie, he's actually the main villain. And I hope that they do him justice because he's badass. And he's done a lot of bad stuff. And in this new movie, we saw from the trailer that Aquaman has a son. In certain issues in the comics, Black Manta kills Aquaman's son, so I don't know if that happens. In this coming movie, we can tell that he ends up getting this secret power, and he ends up unleashing it in Atlantis. So it's going to be interesting to see how they continue showing or showcasing this character, because this character it's like the Joker. You know what I mean? Every single time you see the Joker, it's like you see a different version of the Joker. And in the comics, it's like he gets crazier and crazier, right? And I hope this is what they actually do with this iteration of Black Manta. Like they actually see a growth in how violent and menacing and basically psychotic he is, to a different level. I want to see that because, like I said, he's always served a purpose in helping Aquaman grow. You know what I mean? Same thing that the Joker does to Batman. Batman is forced to really grow. He's forced to really think of different ways to tackle this character. Same thing with Aquaman. He's always forced to, because he knows that this particular villain will do any and everything to win. It doesn't matter what. There's no fighting fair. I'll kill everybody to get to you. I'll do whatever I need to do to get to you. And as a superhero, you need to understand that. Because superheroes don't do the end doesn't necessarily justify the means, but the supervillains, it doesn't matter. So I can't wait to see how they showcase this villain. I actually can't wait. Now again, this is served to be short and sweet, just give you just surface level information about this particular character who has so many different layers. My advice to you is if you especially if you like Aquaman and this coming movie, is explore it. My advice to you is, how about you just watch DC animation? Understanding villains allows you to understand superheroes as well. These go hand in hand. And with every superhero, there's a supervillain. There's always one, right? For Batman, it's the Joker. You could say for Superman, it's Lex Luthor, right? Um, you could say for Diana, it's Cheetah. You know, it's one of those things. For the Avengers, it's Thanos, but not just Thanos. You also have Ultron, right? You have Loki, like for Thor. So it's like these superheroes and their supervillains always go hand in hand, and each somehow, some way, um, allows each other to grow or helps each other to grow. And sometimes it's unintentionally. It's the coolest thing you see when you see these characters. One always wants to one up the other. You know, you think you're here, and then this person is here, and it's the coolest thing. So understanding supervillains allows you to understand superheroes sometimes, and understanding Black Manta allows you to understand Aquaman, and vice versa. So hopefully, with this short story into Black Manta, hopefully you've gotten a lot of it out of it. Hopefully you can better understand this character, better appreciate this character, and hopefully it allows you to look forward to exploring this character a little more, not only in the coming upcoming movie. And I would highly recommend you watch Aquaman 2019 to really understand or see Black Manta in all his glory, in all his glory. But also looking forward to Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom in December. Can't wait to see how Aquaman and how Black Manta is portrayed. Again, it's been a pleasure, as always, being the African Comic Guy, signing off. Peace.